Have you ever wondered why one simple sentence can stay in a woman's mind for years? Not because the sentence was complicated, not because the man was rich, not because he looked like a movie star. Sometimes it's because those few words touched something much deeper. And today, I'm going to reveal 3 simple words that can create that kind of emotional impact when they're genuine. But here's the part most dating advice gets completely wrong. These aren't magic words. You can't simply walk up to a woman, say them, and expect her to become obsessed with you. In fact, if you say them at the wrong time, they can sound empty, needy, or even manipulative. So the real question isn't just, what are the 3 words? The real question is, why do these words matter? When should you say them? And what makes a woman actually believe them? Think about your own life for a moment. Maybe someone once told you something incredibly simple. Maybe it was years ago. You may not remember everything about that day. You may not remember what they were wearing. You may not even remember the entire conversation. But you remember how those words made you feel. Why? Because humans don't remember every conversation equally. We remember emotionally meaningful moments. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 3 words, the psychology behind them, 3 real-life examples of how they can be used naturally, and perhaps most importantly, the biggest mistake you need to avoid. So stay with me, because the 3rd one is the most powerful, and it's also the one most men misunderstand. And before we begin, if you enjoy mature dating advice based on communication, confidence, emotional connection, and relationship psychology, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. Let's start with something important. Why do certain words affect us so deeply? Imagine 2 people giving you a compliment. The first person says, "You look amazing." Nice, right? Now imagine someone who has actually been listening to you for several weeks says, "I've noticed how calm you stay when things get difficult. I really respect that about you." Which one feels more personal? Probably the second. Why? Because the second person didn't simply compliment your appearance. They noticed something about who you are. And this is where mature attraction becomes different from childish flirting. When people become older and more experienced, appearance can still matter. Chemistry still matters. Physical attraction still matters. But emotional qualities often become much more important. A mature woman may ask herself, does he respect me? Can I trust him? Does he actually listen? Does he appreciate who I am? Do I feel comfortable being myself around him? And here's the first major lesson. People don't want to feel like they're being evaluated. They want to feel understood. That's a huge difference. A man can give 100 compliments and still make a woman feel unseen. Another man can say one sincere sentence and make her feel genuinely recognized. So ask yourself, are you trying to impress her, or are you actually trying to understand her? That question changes everything. The first powerful phrase is, "I see you." Now, I'm not necessarily telling you to walk up to a woman and dramatically say those exact 3 words. That could sound strange if there's no emotional context. Instead, understand what the phrase represents. It means, I notice you beyond the surface. Let's say you're dating a woman who is always helping other people. She takes care of her family, she works hard, she remembers everyone's problems, but nobody seems to notice how much effort she puts in. Instead of giving her another generic compliment, imagine saying, "I've noticed how much you do for the people around you. I don't think everyone realizes how much effort that takes." That's powerful because you're not simply telling her she's beautiful. You're telling her, I pay attention. Here's another example. Suppose she's working toward a difficult goal. Maybe she's changing careers. Maybe she's building a business. Maybe she's learning something new. Maybe she's simply trying to rebuild her confidence after a difficult chapter of life. Instead of saying, "Don't worry, everything will be fine," you could say, "I see how hard you're working. Even when things get difficult, you keep going." Do you see the difference? You're not pretending to solve her life. You're recognizing her experience, and that can create emotional connection. But there's a warning here. Don't pretend to notice things just because you watched a dating video. If you don't genuinely see it, don't say it. Because people are often better at detecting insincerity than we realize. And that leads us to the second word. 6:30 to 9. Word number 2, I respect you. The second powerful phrase is, I respect you. And this may sound less romantic than I love you, but in mature relationships, respect can be incredibly powerful. Think about it. What does respect actually communicate? It says, I value your opinions. I recognize your boundaries. I don't need to control you. I don't need you to agree with me all the time. I appreciate the person you are. And that is very different from simply saying, you're beautiful. Let's imagine a couple having a disagreement. The man could say, you're overreacting, or you never understand me, or just do what I said. Now imagine a different response. I don't completely agree with you, but I understand why you feel that way, and I respect your decision. That's mature communication. Notice something important. Respect doesn't mean agreement. You can disagree with someone and still respect them. You can have different opinions and still listen. You can have boundaries and still care. And this is especially important in mature dating because people usually bring entire histories into relationships. Past relationships, past disappointments, past mistakes, family responsibilities, career goals, personal boundaries. At this stage of life, many people don't want another person coming into their world trying to control everything. They want a partner, not a dictator, not a parent, not someone constantly trying to prove superiority, a partner. So if you genuinely admire something about a woman, be specific. Instead of, I respect you, try, I respect how you've handled everything you've been through. Or, I respect how seriously you take your responsibilities. Or, I respect that you know what you want. And now I want you to think about something. When was the last time you genuinely told someone that you respected them? Not because you wanted something, not because you were trying to impress them, but simply because you meant it. That's the difference between a line and genuine communication. And now we're getting to the third phrase. This is where things become much more interesting. 9:30 to 12. Word number 3, I choose you. The third phrase is, I choose you. And this one requires context, because there's a massive difference between I need you and I choose you. I need you can sometimes communicate fear, fear of being alone, fear of losing someone, fear that you won't find another person. But I choose you can communicate something completely different. It says, I have my own life, you have your own life. And despite that, I genuinely want you to be part of mine. That's a very different emotional message. Imagine a mature man saying to a woman, I don't need you to complete my life, but I genuinely choose you because I love the way we fit into each other's lives. That's not desperation. That's appreciation. And here's a real-life example. Imagine a woman has been through a difficult divorce. Maybe she spent years feeling like her needs weren't important. Now she's dating again. A man comes along and says, you're lucky to have me. That might create pressure. But imagine he says, I like the person you are, and I like the life we're building together. That feels completely different. He's not claiming ownership. He's expressing appreciation. And that's why I choose you can carry so much emotional weight. But here's the most important part. Your behavior has to support your words. If you say, I choose you, but constantly disappear. If you say, I respect you, but ignore her boundaries. If you say, I see you, but never listen, then the words mean nothing. Actually, they can make the situation worse, because inconsistency destroys trust.
Now let's answer the bigger psychological question. Why can a simple statement become so memorable? Because the brain doesn't store every conversation equally. Emotionally meaningful experiences tend to stand out. Think about your own life. Do you remember every meal you ate last month? Probably not. Do you remember every conversation you had last year? Definitely not. But you may remember the person who believed in you when nobody else did. You may remember someone who stood beside you during a difficult time. You may remember someone who made you feel respected when you were used to being criticized. You may remember someone who noticed your effort when everyone else ignored it. That's the key. The words become memorable because of the emotional experience attached to them. So don't obsess over finding the perfect sentence. Focus on creating genuine moments. Listen. Pay attention. Ask questions. Remember details. Respect boundaries. Be consistent. Then when you eventually say something meaningful, it has a foundation. Let's make this practical. Example 1. She had a difficult day. She tells you about a stressful day at work. Don't immediately try to fix everything. Instead, listen. Then you might say, I can see why that was difficult. I really respect how you handled it. You're communicating recognition and respect. Example 2. She achieves something. Maybe she finally accomplishes something she's been working toward. Don't make the moment about yourself. Don't say, I knew you could do it because I helped you. Instead, I saw how much effort you put into this. You should be proud of yourself. That's appreciation without taking credit. Example 3. You're already building something together. After months or years of a healthy relationship, you might say, out of all the directions my life could have taken, I'm grateful I chose this life with you. That's much more meaningful than randomly repeating, I love you. The lesson? Context creates meaning. The exact words aren't the entire story. The relationship behind them matters. Now let's talk about the mistake. Some men hear dating advice and immediately turn it into a technique. They memorize phrases, they wait for the perfect moment. They say something emotional because they expect a certain reaction, and that's where everything goes wrong. A woman is not a puzzle you solve. She's not a psychological trick. And emotional connection isn't something you can force. If you're saying, I respect you, because you want her to sleep with you, that's not respect. If you're saying, I choose you, because you're afraid she'll leave, that's not necessarily healthy commitment. And if you're saying, I see you, without actually listening, then you're just performing. So here's a rule worth remembering. Never use emotional language to manipulate an emotional response. Say meaningful things because they're true, not because you're trying to trigger something. That is the difference between manipulation and mature communication. If you want to communicate more effectively, remember this 3-step formula. Notice. Pay attention to something real. Understand. Think about what that behavior tells you about her character. Express. Tell her what you genuinely appreciate. For example, I've noticed that you always make time for your family. Then, that tells me you're someone who really values the people you love. Then, I respect that about you. That's natural. That's specific. And most importantly, that's genuine. You don't need complicated psychology. You need attention. So let's go back to the 3 powerful ideas. I see you. Recognition. I respect you. Appreciation. And I choose you. Intentional connection. But remember this. These aren't magic words. They're powerful only when your behavior makes them believable. If you want someone to believe that you see them, listen to them. If you want someone to believe that they respect them, respect their boundaries. If you want someone to believe that they choose them, show up consistently. Because ultimately, the most attractive thing isn't knowing the perfect sentence. It's becoming the kind of person whose words carry weight. So here's my question for you. Which matters more in a mature relationship? Being desired, being understood, or being respected? Tell me your answer in the comments. And if you've ever had someone say something simple to you that you still remember years later, you can share that experience too. Your story might help someone else understand just how powerful genuine words can be. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel because we're going deeper into mature dating, emotional connection, confidence, communication, and relationship psychology. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Because in our next discussion, we're going to explore something many people completely misunderstand. How can you tell when a woman is genuinely interested in you and when she's simply being friendly? There are several subtle differences, and once you understand them, you'll stop confusing basic kindness with romantic interest. So subscribe, stay with the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Remember, say less, mean more, and let your actions make your words believable.